Good news, everyone! Tonight, a trans art exhibit opens in India. A new nonprofit gears up to help refugees, and a trans champion star is on the rise. Good news starts right now. Happy holidays, everyone. As of broadcast day, we have 25 days until January 20th. It took me 23 days to get my passport from application to it showing up in my mailbox. So there is still time. If you're still in the US, make sure you get yours ASAP. You can find a short how-to video right here on the Transpositions. First up, we are traveling to India's west coast for a story about a teen who understands the intersection of art and inclusion. This is a translated news story from Mumbai, the Free Press Journal. Reina Hazari curates exhibition of transgender artists. At just 16 years old, Reina brings transgender and mainstream artists together in a unique exhibition, redefining the boundaries of inclusion and creativity. 16-year-old Reina Hazarti was always intrigued by the transgender folks she saw at the traffic signals, railway stations, and so on. She often wondered what made them tick and was concerned about their well-being. The young one didn't know what she could do, but always wanted to do something. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to feature this story isn't just because of the age of the protagonist, which itself is quite exceptional, but because it also features several of the art pieces in the exhibition. And that's really freaking cool. Here's one of them. 2 years ago, Reina was introduced to the Alert Citizen Forum by her arts teacher and mentor in the field, Satyendra Rain of the Young Art Foundation. My apologies if I'm sure I'm mispronouncing the hell out of these. We're doing our best here, folks. While working on her project with the forum, she met a few trans folks, and that was just the beginning of activity with them for her. And here's another one of the pieces. I see what I love about these is that they show. This one clearly has several facets. What's really in the eyes, a general hinting of trans colors, and all of them are about periods of transformation and the glorious beauty that can come out of that. It's so wonderful. Today, she's curated an exhibition, Falak, where 9 trans artists are showcasing their work with some known mainstream artists. And this is not all that she's done. During the COVID times, she says, I had read up a lot about the injustices that trans people face and neglect when it comes to healthcare facilities or education. So I spoke to my parents and obviously my mentor, Satan Sir, about it. I want to do something to help them feel more included. Introduced to the forum, she said. Some of the remember, this is India, so there's huge cultural elements from Hindu culture, from Buddhism, and so forth. But there's clear trans symbolism here as well, and I find that so cool. I'm an art nerd, what can I say? This is not the first time Reina has done an art project with the transgender community. Last year, during Pride Month, Reina got trans artists to paint umbrellas, which were later distributed by the foundation among the needy. However, an exhibition of this scale is a little different from a few umbrellas. It also involved getting other mainstream artists interested. Not only that, but the talent also had to be tapped amongst trans folks. Quote, I've been in constant touch with the community ever since I first met them nearly 2 years ago. Therefore, it was not so difficult, Reina says. We, Satan Sir and I, invited sketches and doodles from artists who had participated in the umbrella drive. We received many of those. It was from those sketches and doodles that we chose the 9 artists. You have to see the work to believe it. They are so talented. And we're seeing quite a bit of that here on this post, which is just, I mean, if you walked into an art exhibit and you saw this, doesn't it draw you in and make you think about what the artist is trying to say and imagine the possibilities? Doesn't it make you feel something? Which is the point of art, to evoke an emotional and engaged response. The aim of FLAC, the art show, is inclusivity. Was it difficult to get the mainstream artists involved in this activity? Quote, not at all, says Reina. Most of the artists whom we approached were all excited about the project. Some called on others, saying that they wanted to participate in this exhibition because they wanted to contribute toward the cause. What motivated her to curate such an exhibition? Quote, I think art is such an important medium of connecting people. Throughout my life, I've always found it as a medium of expressing myself. I think it can say so much more than words can. I wanted to share and use this for everyone, Reina said. I was a little scared to take up this initiative because obviously they've gone through so much in their lives. For them, it's hard to open up to people. They're treated like they're not part of our society, but they're so nice and so loving. And once they open up to you, that's really really real, incredible individuals. And I wanted the society to see that through their art. It was Reina's fascination with art that led her to RAIN and then to the trans community. How and when did she fall in love with this creative form? Quote, I've been doodling since childhood, informs Reina. I've always just looked to art like find solace, and I've just always painted and doodled all my life. And it was lucky that my parents supported me. Though there's nobody else from the family who's interested in arts, they wholeheartedly supported me and helped me find a mentor in Satyan Sir. Reina wants to continue her art education after her 12th boards, that would be high school for those of us in the US, graduation from high school, and she wants to continue to support the trans population of Mumbai. Next, we are off to the Rockies to learn about a new nonprofit helping trans people escape to a safer state. From Denver Channel 7, a nonprofit helps trans people who don't feel safe where they live move to Colorado. The Transcontinental Pipeline saw more than 400 requests for help following the November election. Since President-elect Donald Trump's re-election in November, a Denver nonprofit has been inundated with requests for help. The TCP helps trans people who don't feel safe in the states where they live move to Colorado, where protections are stronger. The nonprofit helps with the costs and logistics of moving and connects participants with housing in the Denver metro, offering up to a month of free rent through its housing network. Kiera Richards started TCP 8 months ago out of need, and the dating app Tinder. Quote, purely need-based, mostly out of Tinder, actually. My friends and I started seeing a lot of people coming into town saying, I'm new here, I don't know anyone. And Tinder is one of the first places people go. How else do you make connections, I guess? So we started name trading. That developed into a mutual aid network. And that developed into a nonprofit. And here we are. The group received 22 requests for relocation help in October. Following the election, TPC saw more than 400 requests, according to Richards, and has a waiting list of more than 1,000. Quote, I've seen families with middle schoolers. The oldest I've seen, I believe, was mid-70s. All identities, all races, religions, creeds, just every walk of life, said Richards. We have people reaching out saying they were recently a victim of a hate crime and fearing for their lives. We have people reaching out saying we've been planning this for a minute. We have a couple of questions. It really runs the gamut, everything in between. Richards said TCP is the first nonprofit of its kind that she's aware of in the United States. I should clarify, there is a similar organization based in Canada. I believe it's called the Rainbow Railroad. We've spoken about that in previous episodes. TCP and its 12 volunteers have successfully relocated 100 people so far, according to Richards. And last for today, we are heading to the East Coast to learn more about the first trans attorney to argue before the U.S. Supreme Court. This is from Boston.com. Meet the Newton native who became the first transgender lawyer to argue before the Supreme Court. How rude. On December 4th, Chase Strangio, a Newton native, became the first known transgender person to argue before the Supreme Court, the first out person for sure. On a recent day in early December, Northeastern University law students gathered in a classroom in Boston to listen to a broadcast of a U.S. Supreme Court case's oral arguments. The high-profile case, the students learned, challenges a Tennessee law banning gender-affirming health care for trans minors and imposes civil penalties on doctors who violate those restrictions. Similar laws have been passed in several other states. A few hundred miles south of Boston, American Civil Liberties Union attorney Chase Strangio stood before the Supreme Court justices in Washington, D.C., asserting that the transgender Tennessee law violates the equal protections rights of transgender adolescents. That day, Strangio became the first open transgender person to argue before the highest court in the United States. Quote, "I don't think he'll stop fighting until he's out of breath," Strangio's former Northeastern University law professor Libby Adler told Boston.com. He's model for what law students are training for and what they can go out there and do. Strangio grew up in Newton in what he described as an upper-middle-class suburban community. For his brother, Noah Strangio, it was an idyllic place to grow up. "I really think I struggled as a kid and was really lost," Chase Strangio told Boston.com. "I had a fire inside me that I knew would eventually find its way out, but I suffered and stressed a lot before it did." Chase, 4 years ahead of his brother in school, went to Newton North High, where he was an avid soccer player. Noah attended Newton South. The family of four was paired off. Chase was constantly with their mother, Joan, while Noah was with their father, Mark. Quote, "My mom would often be taking Chase to soccer games," Noah told Boston.com. "On the average weekday, my dad and I would go on hikes and go and see movies." Chase's parents divorced when he was in his sophomore year of high school. Joan, a former social worker, remained a constant presence in her children's lives. Meanwhile, Chase's father remarried. Tensions brewed, and Chase never stayed with his brother at their father's house, Noah recalled, and the two fought often. Quote, "He would stop by our house and they would have heated discussions," Noah remembered. For Chase, that certainly created, I would say, an even further wedge between them. For years, Chase challenged his father on his political views, but ultimately decided to stop discussing the subject with him. Quote, "My way of approaching it is not to really talk about it," he said. "It continues to be one of the things that I just simply don't understand, but don't really engage in regular exchanges about." After high school, Strangio was ready to leave New England. He packed his bags and shipped off to Grinnell College, a private liberal arts school in the Midwest. In 2004, he moved back to Boston and worked at GLBTQ Advocates and Defenders for several years before enrolling in law school at Northeastern. But Strangio worried he might never be seen as a legitimate courtroom advocate. His fear, he wrote in a recent New York Times op-ed, was reinforced during his first year in law school. Quote, "One of my law school professors at Northeastern told our class that we need to abide by the traditional gender norms in court," he wrote. "She instructed that women should wear skirts to appear before juries, and after a presentation in class, she told me I was too soft-spoken to be seen as an effective male advocate." But Strangio kept his head up. Quote, "It gave me a very negative feeling of my first year of law school overall," he told Boston.com. But as in all institutional aspects of life, you will encounter people who are bringing in the overall biases and power dynamics of the professions and society in which you're engaging. And that was what happened in my first year. While pursuing his law study, Strangio lived in Jamaica Plain, where he said he found comfort in the neighborhood's queer community. After his first year, things got better. He served as a research assistant on a clinical project to support LGBTQ youth for Professor Libby Adler. Over the course of his studies, the two developed a close relationship. As a student, Adler said Strangio suffered from what she described as chronic dissatisfaction. Quote, "He's always got his eye on who's suffering and who's left behind," Adler said. "He doesn't rest." Strangio came out as transgender while he was attending Northeastern and had access to medical care that he has said made him feel more at home in his body. "We talk about this care as life-saving," he said. "To be alive also means to have the life you want to lead." After graduating from Northeastern in 2010, Strangio secured a fellowship at the Sylvia Rivera Law Project, where he co-founded the Lorena Borjas Community Fund, which provides bail assistance for LGBTQ immigrants. Strangio spoke about the fund during his job interview for the ACLU. While he was younger than most other applicants, James Essex of the ACLU said Strangio's initiative to create the fund won him over. Quote, "It's one thing to have an idea, another to make it happen," Essex told Boston.com. "That's exactly the kind of initiative that I prize." Essex and Strangio now direct the ACLU LGBTQ and HIV rights project together. Since he started in 2013, Strangio has worked on his fair share of cases at the ACLU, including a challenge to North Carolina's law prohibiting transgender people from accessing restrooms and Donald Trump's ban on trans service members from serving in the military. Quote, "In terms of what it means to be a trans person litigating trans cases, I think, of course, I have a personal connection to the material impact of the work, and I also can relate to my clients' experiences to an extent," he said. "We're all bringing our subjectivity to bear in our interpretation of the law and our interests in how any one or another legal problem impacts us." Strangio also defended whistleblower Chelsea Manning, whom you may recall participated in the recent bathroom sit-ins in Washington, D.C. Chelsea Manning, a transgender woman who was arrested for disclosing classified documents about the U.S. government to WikiLeaks. While working on Manning's case, he met documentary filmmaker Nadia Holgren. The two became fast friends. Quote, "His brain is just very sophisticated in the way he thinks and problem solves," Holgren told Boston.com. "At the same time, he is self-deprecating, down-to-earth, funny, fun, caring. There's not a lot of people like that." In 2016, Strangio wrote a letter to then President Barack Obama pleading for Manning's release. Strangio's calls were answered when Obama commuted most of Manning's remaining sentence the following year. Holgren was assigned to document Strangio's work representing Manning in the film XY Chelsea, including their first meeting at a military prison in Kansas City. Quote, "He's so magnetic," Holgren said of Strangio. "I think people don't intend on him being the center of a story, and the minute they meet him, it's just like, it's so obvious." On the day of his oral argument at the Supreme Court, Strangio felt at ease. He had reread all the briefs and relevant cases and regularly spoke out loud to himself, practicing hypothetical answers to his own hypothetical questions. Quote, "At that point, I felt like I knew what I knew, so I was ready to do it and to have it be done," he said. About 2 weeks before his court case, Strangio spoke on the phone with his brother for an hour and a half. They talked about everything, to movies, to parenting, to the election. Strangio sounded noticeably relaxed, a change that Noah observed in his brother over the years in the way he came to approach his work. On the long-awaited day, Strangio traveled to the court alone. He recalled meeting a colleague at security and talking with the opposing counsel before it was his turn to make his case. During the argument itself, you are so present, you almost don't know what is happening, he said. You're so connected to the exchanges. Noah planned to be in the room with Chase while he spoke before the court, but things took an unexpected turn when his wife went into labor with their second child the day before, 3 weeks early. The brothers caught up on the phone the following day. Quote, half the conversation was about me. Chase asked me about the baby and the birth and how my toddler was doing, Noah recalled. There was a level of zen or serenity from Chase. The argument itself went as expected. Chase told his brother, but the most memorable moment of the day, Chase said, took place outside the courtroom. Quote, I think really the most powerful part for me was coming out of the courtroom to the rally outside, to seeing trans young people and their parents, and seeing so many members of the community just out in the cold, reveling in the joy of just being together, being alive, and being able to be who they are, he said. It was a really beautiful rally, and it gave me a lot of hope for the future. If you enjoy content like this, make sure to subscribe. Transpositions Weekly is the first and only trans news show in the universe, and we need your help to keep this show going. Contribute at patreon.com/thetranspositions. Spread the word all over social media to let people know we're here, and tell us what stories matter to you by joining the community on Discord. Discord, of course, is where the memes live, and our meme of the week was posted by the one and only Bumblebee. And if you want to type with maximum fabulousness, join us. Also, if you have good news concerning trans people that you'd like to see reported on, you can tell us about that in the Discord as well. For the Transpositions, I've been Ember Belrad.